In today's episode, we journey into the life and mind of Gino Taselaar, a visionary entrepreneur and one of the founders of Microdose Pro. He opens up about his personal and professional journey, sharing insights and experiences that are as unique as they are inspiring. Here we explore Gino's early days and how his weaknesses literally became his superpowers. From the high-stakes world of poker to the challenging yet rewarding realm of entrepreneurship. Gino's story is a testament to resilience and adaptation. A key part of our conversation today revolves around a more personal aspect of Gino's life, attention deficit disorder, or ADD. He shares how microdosing not only offered him a new perspective, but also aided him in managing the challenges associated with ADD. This journey with microdosing opened up new doors for Gino, leading him to a deeper connection with his emotional side. Microdosing was the catalyst transforming his challenges into strengths. It quite literally reshaped his approach to life and business. Gino also shares with us valuable lessons from his experiences in starting a company within this emerging psychedelic space. It's a raw and honest conversation with profound insights and a glimpse into the future of the microdosing world. Hello. Hi, Gino.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Here
So
we are,
you were
finally.
just busy. You were just busy telling me what your context is and what brought you to microdosing. But apparently it goes back even further than the practice itself. So I'm very curious to know what that's about.
I think so. I think that the origin started way earlier than when I actually started to microdose. And for me, it is because at some point in life, I got in touch with traditional medicine, Ritalin and Stratera and all these kind of things. And it was because back in the eighth grade, I would say, there was this event, and I'm still mind blown about it because in the eighth grade you got these exams. It's called the CITO-toets in the Netherlands. It's like basically your final exam that defines where you're gonna go next in life. And then after
No
that we've got
pressure.
no pressure, and this is one moment where you have to perform, and that basically defines if you are going to VWO, which is the highest level, HAVO, or VMBO. And I was never the best student in class. I was very out there. Teachers always knew who I was, let's put it that way. I had a lot of energy, and like sitting still in class was never really my thing. But I did get good grades in general. I was participating well. Like my mother always told me, like, you would always question these interesting subjects, right? Like whenever I woke up in the morning, I would go to my mother. Hey, why is it called air? In Dutch, it's vliegveld. An airfield, another airplane field, because it's airplanes landing on a field, right? And it's not a field in the air. These kind of things. Or the other day, my mother told me this story where I would wake up in the morning and there's this Dutch saying that says like, okay, you have a bad mood, so you must have use the wrong food to get out of bed. And then I woke up in the morning. I was like, oh, I really want to have a nice day. So, but I can't remember which food I used to get out of the bed. So I went to my mother crying, like, oh, I don't know. I cannot remember which food I used to get out of bed. And I really want to have a good day. And then she was like, oh, son, you just use both feet next time and you always have a great day. And I was like, oh wow, that makes so much sense. But I was always thinking about these things that people would normally, or well, children I guess, would normally not think about at that age. And then the final exam in the eighth grade results basically gave me the lowest advice on the next phase of my life, which would be high school. And my mother was like, okay, well, this doesn't make sense. I know he's not like the traditional child that plays by the rules and always is quiet in class, but he is not. His intelligence level is definitely higher than that, and it's not again nothing against VMBO or that level, but my mother just basically said like, my son, I just know there's more in there. So, in good collaboration with our primary school, I was the first child actually that had to redo the eighth grade. There was never in the history of the school another child that has ever done it. but I could redo it. And next to that, I had to do a lot of tests on the side with a psychiatrist and everything, and it came out that I had a severe form of ADD, so like HDHD without the hyperactive activity. And I was dyslexic, or like a form of dyslexic, but it's called dyscalculie in Dutch, where you replace numbers. So it's like a dyslexia with numbers, which is very interesting if you know where I end up later in life. And I had to redo the eighth grade, and then after a year, I had the highest possible score on the same tests. So I could go to the highest level of education in high school, which is VWO Atheneum. And everyone in there it goes, and everyone, like all teachers, were just baffled. They would never thought this was even possible. This is also why I'm so strict against the current education system, because there's like two times in my life where I think, okay, this is like a very specific moment that could define the rest of my life, that weren't not for my mother being there and really telling teachers that there's something wrong here. We need to relook and reevaluate the system. I could have ended up somewhere totally different. Anyway, that's when I started my high school. I knew that I had the HCD and whatnot. I tried to work with it. It kind of worked out. I dropped one level, but I made it with HAVO anyway. And then in university, I really started struggling. So the first grade of university, or the first year of university, I started struggling, and with agreement of my doctor. So basically, he's a friend of my parents actually. There were these new things we could try out, which is called Ritalin and Strattera and whatnot, and it can help you focus if you have HDD, and it more structured mind. My mind was all over the place. I was very bad at planning, for example. So I started experimenting with Ritalin and Strattera, and that was, I think, the trigger moment for me to later in life try and use psilocybin for microdosing, because the first few weeks I thought this is the best thing I can ever have, and then after a few months I thought, okay, this is the worst thing I could ever have in my entire life, because I could focus, I was performing well, looking at what people measure by nowadays. I was structured. I was good at planning. I was turning more into a methodical being, like a very logical thinker. While before that I was way more emotional. So I was, for whatever you need to do in university, I was becoming the perfect person and getting good grades and everything. But then after 6 to 8 months, I just didn't feel anything anymore. I couldn't feel joy. I couldn't feel sadness. And it got to the point even that because I had to commute every day for 30 minutes by train, I remember that standing in front of the train, I was like, okay, even if I just jump in front of it, I just couldn't be bothered. I don't care. It was that bad. And then with a psychiatrist, and I went to a psychiatrist to think about it, because it went very bad from there onwards. And then we decided to quit the Ritalin and Strattera. And then I went back to my old self, unstructured but very loving life and whatnot. And that story defined again who I was, or who I turned out to be. Because yes, it took me 2 years longer to finish my university, my bachelor's of business administration. But I really found out at that moment in life, it's not about what others, whatever people want of you, or who you should be according to some kind of system that people made up, but really what works for you and how you can function in society and certain systems. And yeah, whatever, it took me 2 years longer to get my university degree, but in the meantime, I developed other great skills of things that did interest me. So yeah, in that period of time, I didn't take any stimulants for focus or concentration or whatsoever. So the things that didn't interest me took way longer and were super difficult to comply by and whatnot. But the things that did interest me, I could get at this. I learned to understand my body a little bit more, where I could get into this hyper focus state where people with ADHD talk about a lot. Like if it doesn't interest you or doesn't trigger you, or it's going to be very tough. Certain books for me are very difficult to read or get through, but if it really gets me, I can read a book within a day. Yeah, and that's and I tried to kind of use that more into my advantage in things that I I'm very passionate and interested about. So yeah, and then obviously then the loop to microdosing, I was like, okay, now I'm in this phase. Fast forward a few years later, where I finished my studies, started entrepreneurship. Again, having the same trouble, the same problems. I would be bad at structuring things and deadlines and the things that I didn't like. Let's put it this way, or like to do. Maybe microdosing can help me with it. And yeah, and that was the first time I started experimenting, and also experimenting with higher dosage and everything. Yeah, so
Can
that
you
was.
remember when you found out about like microdosing? Was it one of those typical Medium articles from Silicon Valley? Was it one of those things?
So I think it was through entrepreneurial groups because I have a marketing agency on the side, and with my co-founder Pascal, I know him since my youth when we were like 12, wherever. And we were always attending these entrepreneurial circles with other entrepreneurs that just got started, and sharing tips and everything. And then there was this other guy uh, who had been microdosing for cluster headaches and said
Hmm.
it helped him. So that's how I got introduced to the subject back in the day. And then after doing some research, and also, at some point Niels came into my life, and he's been doing that stuff for way longer than I do. I started diving more into it, doing more research, and actually trying it out for myself. Um, yeah, and that's really how I got into it. It's not like I was definitely not the first, like the front runner or whatever you want to call it, or the early adapter, but and the reason why I started it was definitely because back, I think it was 2014 or 13, a lot of these news articles came out, of entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley microdosing to get the best result. And I think it was like everyone at Apple or Steve Jobs microdose to become more creative. These, all these articles that kind of triggered me to try it out for myself too. um, yeah, and that's how the subject really came to my attention. And then, yeah, a few years later, we decided to make a business out of it. Yeah.
Can you remember that conversation?
Um,
Because that was
yes.
back in March
Actually,
2000 to
yeah,
2020, right? So,
it was during COVID because the thing is, like Niels and I have been working together for quite a bit. And Kai, and I knew Kai because I used to work on one of his crypto projects years before. And the synergy with Niels was just very chilled. We work well together on our marketing projects and whatnot. We complement each other. Let's put it this way. And we always said like, hey, it's cool doing marketing for other people and other clients, and we learn a lot from it. You basically get to see how companies perform, and you get to see the other end. Because as a marketer, and especially when we focus on a thing called growth, so growing a company, you really get to push certain buttons that you would never see normally when interacting with a brand. So we learn a lot from that actually over the years. What to do, what not to do, specifically what not to do, because a lot of our clients, they were just failing in business. We learned a lot from their mistakes, and then we came together during COVID because a lot of our clients basically halted services for the time being because it was so uncertain. And we sat together and was like, okay, what can we do now to make use of our time and do the things that were on our backlog since ever, but where we just didn't have time for to explore further. And I had the idea always to come up with some kind of a like a subscription based supplement website or service. It was You didn't really have that back in the day, or back in the day it was like COVID times in the Netherlands. So we're not so like right now in the Netherlands. There's quite a few that provide these services, but back then it was not as common. And then we started exploring that subject further, and then Kai and Niels had also had conversations at the same time, and they were thinking about microdosing. And then we got together and we explored this idea, and we explored the feasibility of it. Like, is it legal even? Because back in the day, yeah, I think we were the first or one of the first companies that actually put the product out there with our face on the website saying, this is not drugs or illegal stuff you buy on the dark web. This is actually something, a very powerful tool that you can help to improve certain aspects of your life. and we do it and we believe by it, like when we used to get our microdoses, it was on weird shady websites, so you would never really know if your order would end up. um, yeah, and then I think there was this final meeting where we called with the municipality of Amsterdam, and I think we called with the Dutch tax authority, basically asking for permission, like, can we do this? And they say, yeah, whatever, as long as you don't sell it physically, you don't need any extra licensing. And that's how it kind of started, very lean and mean, and we basically applied what we've learned over the years working for our clients to this idea, and it started to work pretty well from the onset. Yeah, and just started selling to friends in the beginning, like all of our direct network. But I remember that we're living in Amsterdam, and I thought like, yes, it makes sense that in Amsterdam it's hot because people, they're a little bit more open and that kind of stuff, and forward thinking. But I can never see this happening in where I'm from, in the south of the Netherlands, like a small, like a, well, not small, but like a farmer's village community kind of thing. And then when I used to go back and like, oh, hey, I saw you changed business, friends would ask. And then I said like, yeah, I'm doing truffles. So you're a drug dealer now, like people
Mm.
really had no idea what I was talking about. And I also thought that we would never be able to, or the market would never be able to convince the rest of the Netherlands that this was actually a good thing. And that's interesting that in a matter of only 2 to 3 years, this is now common practice. Even I've said it before on another interview, but even my mother microdosed for a period of time to get over winter. How do you call it? Seasonality effects of winter and that kind of stuff. So um, yeah, and so many people that I know from the place where I'm from have tried microdosing. So it's very interesting to see how that developed. Yeah.
Which is interesting because that kind of brings me to, because I remember that Nils said you guys started it from the place that microdosing initially benefited you guys, which was productivity, focus, creativity. And as the years have gone on, almost going on 4 years now in a few months, um, it's turning out that the effects range far wider. This is what we're
Mhm.
learning from our community. So it begs the question: what have you learned? And maybe while we're discussing that, what have you learned from your perspective, and what is your position as one of the co-founders? It's a double-ended question, but
Good question. I mean, my sole goal and focus was productivity, right? Because it's not something I've been struggling with my entire life, but it's definitely something where I was annoyed by. Like um, that. Why am I not capable of doing, reading a book within like a decent amount of time? That it's interesting, but not really triggering me too much. Why can't I do these kind of things? But also over the past few years, like during studies and after, I really got to understand my own body and my own mind and how it works. So I just chose to focus more on the things that I like to do. And as an entrepreneur, you get that freedom, right? So I got to choose to be more in situations where I could get into a flow state because I really love what I'm doing. And I'm the type of guy that just needs to, I learn by doing. So I need to trigger myself continuously to have a new challenge, or like have something like a new skill to acquire, kind of, if you want to gamify it to a certain extent. So I kind of designed my life that I could focus better on things that interest me, but then there would obviously still be a lot of things that are not as interesting to me, like what I said, like reading a book, for example. So I wanted to try microdosing to see if that could also um, help me focus on other aspects that generally were a little bit tougher. For example, following an online course on, back in the day when I was a marketeer, on certain aspects of marketing, or data analysis or whatnot. Um, and it's super interesting because you always say this, right? Psilocybin gives you what you need and not what you want. And for me, this was a huge realization moment that over the years, I think earlier I said that I'm a bit of a mix of a emotional and rational person. My mother is like the super emotional of the two, like, yeah, she's always talking about her emotions and very sensitive and whatnot. My father's super rational and like logical and thoughtful about everything, and I'm just a mix of those two. And I think like when I was younger, I was more a mother because she raised me more. And then during studies and work, I turned out to be more methodical and logical because it just fit the period in life more where I was in, because I could be productive and provide value to companies and whatnot. And then what microdosing kind of, I thought, okay, now I can be even more productive. And then it kind of hit me in the face because it really taught me to listen to my body, like, okay, so in certain aspects I would not be more productive while microdosing, while Niels and Kai were like, freak hell, I've never been so productive. And I was like, why again? Why is this? Why can I just have the normal effects that everyone else had? But then it started me learning more about my body and mind, and I started listening to my sensations. And okay, maybe I do need to rest. Oh no, I really need to take a walk outside, and maybe I really should just take it easy this morning. It's just my body telling me that it's not always go time, and sometimes it's chill time, and that's fine. And I think that and definitely it also is in certain aspects help me focus. When I can read longer, for example, so my attention span for reading, but on other ends I would definitely lose productivity and focus, where I would normally be in a hyper focused state of mind. It would be less because my mind would be a little bit more distracted or focused on, okay, I need to do other things. So it's a little bit of a balance, but I must add to that my, like, with what I'm doing right now, with this moment in my life, I'm already super focused. No, my focus is insane. I don't need to take anything. I just wake up in the morning, and the first 4 hours are my magic hours. I can just get straight into it and get stuff done. So
I
I
can
was thinking
confirm.
to myself,
I can confirm this is true.
yeah, so I was also thinking about myself, okay, if I wanted to become more can I even be more productive through microdosing? Is it even possible? With the things that I like to do. So it taught me a lot about other things, what I'm very grateful for, and to take a step back. And it's like a little reset moment for me whenever I do a microdosing cycle. I get to enjoy the smaller things again, be less on autopilot. um, for example, when cycling through Amsterdam, and enjoy just the little things that you experience along the way, that normally I would just go straight to the office. So it's not necessarily the productivity for myself. It's also the emotional balance. Let's put it this way. Whenever I'm working nonstop, I could try and I could probably just lose balance a little bit and become more of that rational, logical, methodical type of guy. And then the microdosing just gives me, a reason, or motivates me to go back to balance a little bit more. So I'm very grateful for that. Also, higher dosage, by the way, like both practices help me realize, like, okay, why are you here today? What is your
Mm.
purpose? Is it really to be productive nonstop and focus on these tiny little tasks, or is there more to life? Like, so
Yeah, it
yeah.
sounds
And
like psilocybin is really the yin to your yang,
yeah.
and it's part of that whole rest is as much a part of performance as the performance itself. It's
100%. And I, and I
motivating.
think and I think the interesting thing is it's not a one size fits all solution, because that's, Ritalin is, and Satera is. For people that have attention problems, take Ritalin and you'll focus more. And the thing is, with microdosing, it is not as easy. It's more work, and it will give you something, but you cannot be sure what it is beforehand. And it also makes it a lot more complicated to share with people, because who wants to try something out where they're not sure what the outcome would be? So I think that's a beautiful thing, obviously, but it's also a more difficult thing, because not everyone will become more productive, and not everyone will, become more creative, or
Well, it's
necessarily
the
have
definition of an adaptogen. An adaptogen is kind of mediating what you're a little bit extra in, and then bringing forward what you could do, what you could benefit from having a little bit more of. So it's kind of like reducing the highs and rebalancing the lows so that you're more round and less spiky.
yeah, more
And
balance.
people don't necessarily realize the areas in their lives where they might be low, or high because they just get on and they just do the thing, and their environment agrees and encourages them and says, yes, keep going this way. And then psilocybin comes along and says, hold on,
Wait a
have
minute.
you considered, yeah.
And the cool thing is that not necessarily, because I don't microdose all year long. We travel a lot. We travel through countries a lot where it's not legal to use psilocybin or microdosing. So in the Netherlands, I always have my 2-3 months a year where I try to reset and go back to balance or equilibrium or whatever you want to call it. But I do think that due to psychedelics and microdosing, I've been implementing practices in my life that even when I'm not microdosing, I'm more in balance. So I started to journal often, and I do it on a weekly basis. Daily was a little bit too much, but every Sunday I journal. And every Sunday I talk about my, not necessarily just the week or feelings or whatever, but also like, okay, what have we, just to become more aware of where you are and what you've done, and because my mind can really go quickly into autopilot, and I really want to avoid that. I want to be very more present in the moment. And other things, like sometimes I go to yoga classes with my fiance, for example, with my girlfriend. And that would be like, if you would tell Cynthia this 5 years ago, she said you would never ever do these kind of things, or just a structured life in the sense of working out and eating more healthy. And I think these are things that I was doing less in the period of life before I got in touch with psychedelics and microdosing specifically. So it taught me a lot of lessons along the way, and especially when it comes to listening to your body. And these lessons I'm very grateful for, and I'm also grateful for that I've been able to implement them in my daily life, even when I'm not microdosing or anything like that.
And
So
that's such an important thing, because what I've started to say, one of my recent taglines is you get to keep the neuroplasticity. Because people say, well, what happens if when I stop? Because you're telling me I should take a break after 6 or 8 weeks, and then am I going to lose the effects? Have I built tolerance? They have all of these ideas in their mind. And your experience is a testament that the infrastructure in your brain that you've optimized, you get to
yeah,
keep.
yeah,
Win.
100%. It's just like how we try to explain it to clients. It can be a habit builder or a habit breaker, like both ways.
Yes.
Habits are difficult to break and build, and I think microdosing really makes it more easy for you to first become aware of yourself, like what habits do I need to build, and then to help you build them in your daily life or break, smoking. Or I haven't smoked in ages. I used to smoke sometimes in parties. I'm not saying that microdosing really caused me to stop smoking 100%, but it's just the combination of everything that puts you
Yes.
forward to a more healthier lifestyle. I haven't smoked in, I cannot even remember the last time I smoked, so I think it is just like a tool in your toolkit that you can use to implement certain things in your life that you want, that you want, or that you didn't know you needed, if that makes sense.
100%.
um
We hear that a lot. You don't start microdosing to stop smoking or reduce your drinking. It just kind of happens. And the resistance you have to putting on your running shoes in the morning, you don't need a 20-minute pep talk.
yeah,
You might actually be enthusiastic about going outside, and you're like, oh my god, who is this person in my head? I don't recognize this person, because I'm not getting drunk. It's Saturday morning, I'm not hungover, it's 9 a.m., and I actually have energy, and I'm actually going to do something constructive with this energy.
yeah, yeah. But it's difficult though, again, when coming back to a product standpoint. Like, we're so used in the Western society to have a problem and a solution. So I have a
Yes.
problem and I pay money for a solution, and then it helps me with my problem. And in marketing, you call it like a value proposition. What is the proposition of the value that you provide? And it's great. The smoking example is great because we tried to host a smoking a cessation session with Jai, like where 10 people would microdose for a quarter, and then the idea was to, through microdosing, help them stop smoking. Because yes, we had clients that said, hey, I was microdosing, then I stopped smoking. But it's not like everyone that smokes and wants to stop
Mm.
smoking with microdoses then can stop smoking, because at the end of the 3 month period, I think only one person stopped, and he started smoking again a few weeks later. So it's not like you can say like, hey, try microdosing and then you'll receive benefit X or solve problem X, and that makes it a little bit different, because because then you need to be very open-minded. You need to be open-minded to the fact that, okay, I'm starting this journey. um, it'll probably be good for me. I don't know exactly what it will bring me, but it will bring me something. And that's for a lot of people, especially in Western society. If I'm paying for this, I need to know what I get. And that's
Yes.
a different way of thinking, or a different mindset you need to address when you start microdosing. Yeah.
Yeah, solve for X, as Mo Gadat would say. Bless him. I love that guy. So tell me a little bit about your role at Microdose Pro and Human Pro, the sister company. We almost never talk about Human Pro, but it's a wonderful company as well. And tell me, how do you fit in, and how does this holistic mind of yours operate in the background?
Yeah, so I think structure. So like I'm focusing more on the marketing slash the growth area. So making sure that whatever we put out there, that people want to use it, and people get the results they want. And basically, what Niels and I have been working on for the last 10 years, we're implementing that knowledge and experience in practice on certain aspects when it comes to marketing and growth. So I'm focused on mostly growth, a little bit of the finance side, making sure that all the bills get paid in time and whatnot, and really providing structure within the company. We can be all over the place from time to time, but I think it's important to stay focused, especially. Now we also added Human Pro, like our supplement line, to the mix, functional mushrooms. It's very important to decide where you focus on as a company, because you can only focus on so many things at the same time, and we always want to do everything, and we only have so limited time and resources. So I think, yeah, together with Kai and Niels, but that's like most of my focus goes into that. And a part of that is still executional level, so a lot of marketing. We have a few great marketing agencies we work together with, but we're moving more towards more of the strategic side of things. So thinking about, okay, we've got a list of clients that microdose. Why do they microdose? Okay, and what was their experience after, and how can we help them solve a bigger part of their problem? And is there other things that we can do? So more on the service and product level, try to fill the gaps of yes, like our customer needs, basically. And that's super interesting, because you learn a lot. You learn a lot about your clients, your customers, and our clients might know that we regularly do interviews and we do surveys, and we really try to understand why people start a certain journey, and also if they've then reached their goals that they wanted to achieve. Well, for example, for microdosing, we already know that a lot of the times the reason why they started is not necessarily the reason why they keep doing it. I'm the living example of that. So, but that's very interesting, because that's still interesting information to have. So I try to get that information and put it in more in a structured place, so we learn more about the product and also our audience, our community, and decide, okay, now we know what people actually benefit from. How can we help them more? Or we know the reasons why they started the journey, and what kind of products or services can we add to that regimen to help them reach their goals. Because most of the time, for example, if you microdose to become more productive, microdosing is just one little tool in the whole process. Productivity is not something you can get out of a magic pill. There's a lot of, you need good sleep, you need a structured work environment, you need like some tools, probably. You need to set goals for yourself. There's a ton of information written about productivity. Same goes for habit building, for example. And yeah, I'm more interested in going into that route. So exploring how we can use products and information and services to help our community and our customers reach their goals. Yeah.
And
And
it's so interesting the keywords you used, that you're helping the company stay focused, and you're the growth guy, which means numbers. And I know that you're an avid poker player. And it's so interesting because those were your challenges for a significant part of your formative years, and now it's
yeah,
really, really becoming your strengths from what I can see.
yeah, I think that's super interesting. I've never really put a lot of thought in it how that turned out to be, but I think like poker is that. So the period in university where I was struggling with my attention and started using Ritalin and whatnot is the same period where we started playing poker, and I did question myself like, why am I good at this and not at the university side of things. Well, if you think of back in the day, how much time and effort we put into improving our game, it was ridiculous. Like every Sunday we would get together with a group of friends and very methodically go through our hands and discuss what we could do better and whatnot. And if I just had that same yeah, intensive motivation to put into my university studies, I would have finished it within 4 years. And so for me, I think I need to, like, my brain just works differently. Whenever it's logical for me, it's easier, and whenever it's not logical for me to do, it just breaks, and I just can't focus, and I make mistakes and whatnot. And next to that is also building systems, right? Building systems to ensure that you don't make the mistakes again. I don't, in startup life, they always say fail forward. So there's no such thing as failing. It's just learning. But I do think that if you create the mentality of learning from your mistakes and never trying to make the same mistake twice, then eventually you'll continuously grow. And I do try to do that with my mistakes that I've made. I always try to avoid them. Like it's fine if you make a mistake once, but at least try not to make it twice. So I think that's a combination of things. And it's just the motivation, the inner drive of things. Really, like our community, whenever we get a positive review, we're intensely happy about it. Like, and maybe companies never share that, but we're actually, we use Slack as a chat management system. Whenever we get a positive review, we're like, oh guys, this is so cool, have you checked this review? Oh, this is so awesome. And it actually gives us motivation to keep going every morning. And that's really important. We really believe in what we're doing and where we want to where we envision to end up going in the near future. And that's I've never had that before, and especially not doing marketing for clients, that you have this sense of fulfillment where you can really make a change in someone's life. And that's
Mhm.
really cool. I think that's really driving a part of that motivation to keep going every day. Yeah.
It,
and
it
and
is, it is really, sorry.
Mhm. No, so what I wanted to say in addition to that is I really value my freedom. That's like for everyone who knows me, like I could probably never work in a big corporate or whatnot where people tell me what to do. So it's that combination, right? I know that I have to do shitty things that I don't like to do, but in return I get my freedom, and that makes it easier for me to focus. Now I'm older, I really but I'm pretty sure if I would have to do the same things in a corporate environment that wasn't my own company and where someone told me what to do, where I thought like, okay, this is not logical at all. Basically university 101 all over again. I could probably not do the same things and focus the same way I do for my own company. So it's not about the actual task, but more about the reason why I'm doing it. And that's I learned that a lot in the past few years. I need to put myself into situations where I challenge myself continuously, and then yeah, great things happen. So that's
Yeah, it is really so satisfying when we have interactions with our community, and our community is very generous, bless them, and they tell us when we get it wrong, and they definitely share with us when they get it right. And I'm gonna give you guys kudos the way I did in yesterday's meeting. I don't know what it is about the synergy between you, Kai, and Nils, but I think it's really is quite not only genius but skillful and effective that Microdose Pro focuses on the fatty man protocol for the beginners, and also emphasizes the benefits of the sweet spot.
Mhm.
Because it's a gold rush, and some people are playing fast and loose and just take this and you'll be fine. And there's not much guidance, support, or education. I think it was Jamie Wheel that said education before legislation or regulation, and I very much agree with that. And the fact that for some reason you guys have decided, like, okay, we're going to take a page out of Fatty Man's book, literally take a page out of his book and encourage people to do it correctly, has created this beautiful feedback loop where it really is so satisfying. And then it's a triple win. Everybody wins, and it's motivating. And I wonder what it is about the three of you, because I used to work with Airbnb as a brand ambassador for Cape Town, and Brian Chesky is the face of Airbnb, and you don't really see the other two. You know,
Hmm.
there's Joe, and I don't even know who the third guy is. So I've kind of brought you guys out of the darkness. Nils doesn't mind it so much. I've had to kind of get you and Kai out of the darkness, but there must be some
Oh,
kind of
absolutely.
chemistry and synergy between the three of you that's
Mhm.
not only brought you to this place, but is creating something
Yeah.
with the community and with the market in such an effective and beautiful way.
Yeah, thanks that you say that because I agree fully. I've never worked in a team where the synergies are so complete in a sense, and my father always told me, working together with someone, starting a company is basically getting married. It's very important
Yes.
that you choose to start a company with the right person. And one plus one needs to be three, because if it's two, it's not enough. You're not going to make it. So, and obviously, we've all already had experience working in other, other companies or with other people before we started deciding to work together. And we are so different on a lot of aspects, like, but that complements each other perfectly. And I think Niels once made us do this Myers Briggs test, the personality test, and
Oh, of
according to
course you
Niels, yeah, of course he did. Like, I think it's cool, but whatever. Uh,
did.
believe in it, but it's not necessarily my main driver. He he's very passionate about it. And the outcome of the test, basically, I don't know the details anymore, but it showed us that the combination of our personalities is the best combination you can have while starting a company. So, and I think our discussions get heated sometimes when when I'm having a discussion on the Google Hangouts or whatever, and my friends are in the room or my girlfriend is. People ask me like, what the hell, is this normal? And yeah, this is normal. This is just, we just spit out everything and let our thoughts go out without being offended by each other, and then eventually we get to a certain outcome and we work it out and it's fine. We have our discussions, but never it's never unworkable. And that's, I think, really cool, and everything just flows naturally from there. And I think also the second thing is that we all three of us, our goal is not to make money,
Mm.
and I, a lot of people, entrepreneurs, that is the main goal, and then next to that, they want to whatever provide value to a customer. We really want to help people first, and so we're actually happy whenever we get good feedback. And I think if you work from that motivation, it really changes the way you work together, but also work with your client. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's one of the first things I noticed when I started with you guys is, and I haven't been a witness, although I'd love to be a fly on the walls when the plates start flying. I would actually find that quite entertaining. But I quickly noticed that you guys fight well. And the
We
reason
don't
I
call them
knew
fights, though. We call them intelligent discussions.
that, and the reason I knew that is because I mean, specifically Nils, because I work directly with him, is he would tell me, he would open the subject by explaining why the other person was right, first and foremost, and then get to what his perspective was, and then finish off with the compromise or the middle point that was agreed to. And at one
Yeah.
point, I actually said to him, I said, "Do you realize how wise that is?" Because normally when you're in it, you're like, I can't believe and this and whatever. And
You
he's like,
become very emotional and yeah,
defensive, and
defensive.
he's never defensive in that way. He's like, I can see where they're coming from, and this is what they meant, and this is their intention, but this is what I was thinking, and so this is the conclusion. And I'm like, wow, you Dutchies are another kind of
Very
human.
methodical.
Great.
Yeah, very rational, methodical. Yeah, I think we both like all three of us are. But also coming back to your question with the Fadiman protocol, it was, we try to share this information out of our own experience. And
Mm,
my first microdosing experience wasn't good because I took way too much. As you might know, my microdosing sweet spot is 0.37 gram or a little bit less even. And I was consistently taking 1 gram because everyone sold it in 1 gram pieces. And no one told me I needed a micro scale and weigh my own microdoses. And it could be less than a gram. Everything was packed in 1 gram format. So I thought, okay, this is just what I need to go by. And from own experience, I was always taking too much and was like, oh, this is not nice. I don't feel chilled. I couldn't focus at all anymore. And I was just, and also like I go bad on caffeine. I don't drink coffee, but I can imagine if you drink like 4 cups of coffee, that effect I would have on a daily basis. And I was like, why the hell is everyone talking about this microdosing thing? It's just giving me the jitters and it's not fun at all. So we really been there. So what we actually try to do is, okay, that didn't work. You need to get to your sweet spot. And if you have your sweet spot, everything changes. And you're like, aha, that's the aha moment we talk in marketing about a lot. Then you think like, now I understand what they're talking about. So we identified getting to the sweet spot as like the main goal for us, to get people to understand like, okay, people need to go to the sweet spot because then they'll have a better experience. I kept microdosing because I was interested in the subject, but a lot of people, I can imagine, if your first experience is not good, why would you try it a second time? So that's why that sweet spot thing is so important. Um, and also client feedback. Again, we just did a lot of interviews and surveys, and we found out that whenever clients get to their sweet spot, they're more likely to microdose again. So,
mm.
from a business standpoint, it's obviously makes sense to get people to their sweet spot. And then years later, everyone's talking about sweet spots and, using micro scales and whatnot. But back in the day, we were one of the first to actually, use the Fadiman protocol in our communication and really try to train people to get to their sweet spot. And I think the app is actually a result of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the sweet spot is, it's not a permanent location, and I know this from speaking to you previously, that it can change and that oftentimes it reduces. And look, I'm not an expert in the field, I'm not a chemist, I'm not a doctor, but my theory, my correlating theory, is that a lot of the infrastructure work has already been done. A lot of
Hmm.
the repair work, the trimming, the pruning, the optimized connections between synapse A and B. And so when you come back on your second cycle after your first break, there's a very good chance you don't need as much. And that was very real for you. And that's why,
Hmm.
again, it's so important to know, how do you feel, which is something
Reflection.
you've also had to develop. Because
Yeah.
then knowing on how you feel, then that's how you get to your sweet spot, which is likely to change.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think not enough people talk about this. Like if I look at a lot of other brands in the market, not a lot of brands, especially looking at the US. There's a lot of microdosing brands in the US popping up, and they just sell whatever mix psilocybin powder with a lot of other things. They never really talk about regimens, and no, they just take this chocolate psilocybin microdosing thing and just have a good day. But that's not the whole, that should not be the goal around microdosing. Like if you really want to have the effects that everyone's talking about, you should treat it as like a methodical in a methodical way, and reflect on a daily basis and really take time to do it. And not a lot of people are willing to do it. A lot of people, they think like, okay, I saw this on the internet and I just want to try it out and take this magic pill and improve my life. No, it's really, you have to see it as a tool in your toolkit. You need to learn to work with it and implement it properly, but also work on yourself at the same time. And that's what a lot of other brands don't really just focusing on shipping product. And that's what we don't want to do. We really want to help people achieve their goals, because that's when people are most happy, right?
And that's another thing that I personally like about Microdose Pro, and I see it in Canada, which is where I'm from. That in Canada you can't get truffles because they're not legal like they are in the Netherlands and in the EU. And so the psilocybin they have access to is processed, whether it's in a capsule with God knows what else in it, it's in a gummy, so it's been through a system, or it's in a chocolate, and you're removed from the original source. You're removed from the original state that psilocybin came in. And I think it's so important to be really directly connected from human to compound
Hmm.
without any intermediates. And that's what's really beautiful about the truffles. It's just you and the product. And it's not
Product, yeah.
really a product because it's fresh.
Hmm.
It's just you and the
Yeah.
compound.
Yeah, that's why I'm also very curious on how the synthetic psilocybin
Oh God,
development
don't
will.
get me started.
Yeah, I also don't. I also don't believe in it the same way as that the industry believes in it. But I think that it's. I cannot see it work, to be honest. But yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work to have to extract the compound without it making it psychoactive. As far as I'm concerned, lion's mane is the one that understands how to make it nootropic and not psychoactive.
Hmm.
And Mother Nature sorted that answer out with lion's mane, and I think chemistry needs to stay out of it. But that's just my opinion. so, so what do you think is next for you, either personally and for Microdose Pro and Human Pro? What can we expect?
Yeah, good question. Personally, I think so. We're like my girlfriend and I are getting married next year, so that's our next big step in life. I would say we're going to Cape Town to see you, obviously. The rest, like a lot of like our love is with Cape Town. We really love that place, so we cannot wait to be back there. And then I think we're gonna try and find a place to settle more. I mean, we've been living in Amsterdam for quite a while now, and we're kind of exploring like, okay, is this it, or are we gonna, where we wanna continue the next phase of our life? So that's on the personal level, and then on the business level, yeah, we're continuously discussing what the future will bring. There's a lot of ideas, a lot of products that we've been thinking about and further expanding into. We need to do more research around these kind of things. But I think that next year will be very much more focused on creating more value, creating new products, creating new services potentially. All what I cannot tell too much about, but really focusing on solving the bigger problem. Not just what I said earlier, what a lot of other brands do, ship a product and then that's where it ends. No, really try to help clients identify and solve their problems so that they can have an improvement in whatever aspect in life where we may focus on. So that's it's going to be more research. I know our clients can probably get more requests to be interviewed or surveys to fill in, because we really want to know how you're thinking, or ticking, I should say, not thinking. And for example, we're working on this product quiz right now that we will share with people during onboarding, to ask them a few questions around, why did you want to start Microdose, and what is your experience? Did you take other products, or what did you do to solve your problem beforehand? Just to really understand, like, okay, where is it where we should focus on? Because we know what we would like to do, what we want. There's a lot of products that we want to use ourselves, but eventually that's not what matters. It's like what our clients want, and how they can use it to improve their lives. So more research, more product development. There's a lot of cool things, big things happening on the background that I cannot share too much about, but we'll definitely share it when the time is right. Um, yeah, that's it. And for Human Pro, like for Microdose Pro, it will obviously be focused on around the practice of microdosing. It's very structured, and it's very well defined. But for Human Pro, we can go in a lot of directions, and we're actively exploring which directions it will be. Like, is it going to be more supplement focused? Is it going to be more functional mushroom focused? We cannot do everything at the same time. So yeah, that's the challenge of 2024 already. Well, it sounds like the far future, which isn't.
What do you mean? You three overachievers can't do everything at the same time. I don't believe it. Um,
Ah,
but you mentioned the app earlier, and I know that the app is another component of community. And I don't use that word lightly, despite the fact that it's been so overused and is one of those corporate keywords that just makes my hair curl because I take it so personally, as somebody that's, a child immigrant that's adapted to so many different global communities, and then to obviously work for Airbnb. And all of my jobs, somehow, some way, even when I was in the feature film industry, was about herding people and keeping them under an umbrella and making sure that everyone's okay. And it's just like kind of checking in from a distance and kind of, I'm always not in the herd but of the herd, so on the periphery, and I've been allowed to really really lean in and maximize that with our communities and our app. Hopefully soon we'll have that feature where we can really connect more with people, and I really think that's, from a psychological point of view and a physiological point of view, we understand how important that is and how beneficial it is to our health.
yeah, yeah,
Everybody talks about, oh, it's more toxic on your body to be lonely than to smoke cigarettes. Well, this is why I'm so committed to our levels of community and for the latitude you guys give me to
yeah.
really lean in and build on that. And one of the projects is based on this app that we've recently launched, that is free and available, and people are starting to experiment with. And it's great for tracking and for reminders and for small note taking and journaling. And I think that's really going to really create an even more beautiful umbrella for everybody to stand under.
Yeah, I agree. The app, again, it's a project that got into existence based on user feedback. A few steps back, we did research and we found out that whenever people hit their sweet spot, they're happy and they're more likely to continue microdosing or explore that journey and use other products, whatnot. And the goal of the app was to help people reach the sweet spot. That's also why it's called sweet spot. But like we've been like experimenting with a lot of different apps in the last 6 months, and you've also experienced with it through our 100-day challenge we did with the warrior. And there are so many other cool features that we can do in order to help people reach their goals. That's where it is again, like change behavior, basically help people do certain things. And I think the community aspect is very important for that. It's like the group cohesiveness of like, hey, we're going to do this together and we're gonna help you with it whenever you're struggling. And obviously you're already doing a great job with moderating all communities and trying to help and motivate people reach their goals. But I think if we can create an environment where our clients can help each other and really motivate each other to go to the next phase or next stage or next goal, whatever it is what they want to achieve, that would be beautiful. Because I also think that microdosing is something that you really can do together. It's not something you do on a daily basis for the entire year. And I do think that people also, like myself included, need to be reminded sometimes, like, hey, it's that time again, and let's do it together. Why not? I did it together with my girlfriend for some time, and reflected together on our experiences. And it's not always good. It's not always nice and chilled, but you do learn and grow from it together. And I think that's just a very nice thing to build relationships and share experiences with people. I mean, it's fine doing it by yourself, but I think this is the ideal product, or this is the ideal journey to share with someone. So there's definitely something in there. We have no idea what or how it will look like. Um, but yeah, you can definitely experience some more development in that area.
I'm going to quote Jamie Wheel again. I quote him at every opportunity I can catch. And he talks about decentralized information when it comes to psychedelics. And the brain surgeon, Dr. Jack Kruse, he also talks about decentralized medication or information. And I'm such a big advocate for that. And my way of wording it is each one teach one. And I try and mention it in all the coaching calls, and I mention it in all of our platforms on Facebook and on Discord. And I'm like, right, I love how you guys are supporting each other. And sometimes I purposely step back and I don't say anything unless it's necessary, because I'm passing the baton to, I've informed person A correctly, and then I expect person A to inform everybody in their surroundings correctly
Yeah,
when the opportunity comes. And that's the only way to go forward safely, because psychedelics, like fire, can burn the house down or cook a meal. How
yeah,
are you going to use it? And it's really, really vital for everyone to know how to communicate, how to use
yeah.
these tools correctly. And that happens in community.
And do you have practical examples where you see that, okay, I kind of try to spread this word or spread this message, and now I see people repeating it? Because I see it in little things, but I don't pay too much attention to it. Like people start using flow strong, or these small little things. But are there also like messages that you've put out there that you see? Oh, well, I guess the one that I used in the beginning, psychedelics give you what you need, not what you want. That's something you see back in the community pretty often as well. And even I'm using it, because it makes sense, and I've experienced that it's true. But are there like other practical examples that you could note that you could say like, okay, I feeded this into our community, and now it's just like expand. The community is expanding on it by itself.
Well, it just happened. The discussion that's ongoing now. 2 days ago, somebody posted saying it's not working. Everybody's having such a great experience microdosing. I'm feeling emotional. I have a headache. I'm not feeling right. What's wrong? And then people just chime in. Your dose is too high.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Drop your dose. And I'm like, my people, my people.
My stop your coffee in the morning. Ah, yes, there we go.
And they share the articles sometimes, or they're just like, look out for this marker and look out for this symptoms, and take a step back, and have you been journaling? And they're really using a lot of the keywords and a lot of the guidelines that I've provided. So it's so
And that's
satisfying,
maybe
because
what
we're like
you.
the Smurfs. We're
Yeah.
like the Smurfs, we're all out there.
Yeah, yeah. And you're a head Smurf. Was it like what's his name again? Smurfette. Yeah.
Smurfette. I love her. Yes. And this is why I particularly wanted to do these conversations, because you guys work so hard in the background, and I know that our community, back in the day, sometimes you guys would join our coaching calls, which was fantastic. And now it's less feasible, but I know that our community are fascinated by you. I'm fascinated by you guys, and we wanted to have an access into your little minds and see how you guys tick. um, and is there anything that you're reading now that you're a much more balanced human being? Have you managed to tackle the reading aspect? Are you?
Um, yeah, definitely. So there, but like a lot of the books that I've read that really triggered me are very practical. So that's like practical things that I can implement in my daily life straight away. But I'm definitely doing more audiobooks for the
Okay.
more um, non-practical things. I'm listening to Storm Before the Storm of Mark
Okay.
Duncan. It's basically of the period before the Roman Empire fell. And I
How
sorry.
often do you think of the Roman Empire?
That question, yeah, pretty regularly actually. Yeah, I don't know how that came. At some point, I was just wondering about certain things. I was like, okay, where did this came from? Or I think at some point I was inspired to watch the series on HBO again. It's called Rome, I believe, and
Yes,
it
it's
was so.
excellent. It's old
It's
though. It's from like 20
super
years
old.
ago, but it's so
Yeah,
good.
it's
So
so,
good.
and especially because I did some research and I found out that a lot of the scenes are based on not necessarily real events, but on scenarios how people actually live there. So I was baffled about how politics worked, and not just necessarily
Yes.
the official politics, but also just between families and drama. And I'm like, whoa, we as human beings have not changed that much at all. So then I started doing research, and okay, so what has changed is technology, but how did people tackle these kind of things back in the day? And then especially with the Roman Empire, because it was so civilized, you can learn a lot from the mistakes they've made. And I think we as human beings are just really stupid and never really want to learn from history. Well, I find it super interesting to learn from history. So that's a little bit on how I got into this. And Mark Duncan, I think he has a YouTube channel that's, he's explaining a lot of these things about the Roman Empire in very detailed way. So that's how I got to read this book. And this book I just read while going to the gym or walking, just like to have some background things to listen to. It's not like because it's very detailed. All of the events are explained very detailed, so I don't always actively try to consume all that information. But it's more like, oh, nice, interesting. I didn't know it worked that way, And I had this other book that I read before or listened to before, and it was um, I don't the sea. It was about the sea voyage, the first sea voyage of the Portuguese sea traveler called Magellan, who
Mm-hmm.
uh, who came up. The Strait of Magellan in Southern America is named after him. So he was the first person to prove that the Earth is round, and he sailed with a whole group of boats across the ocean, and he nearly died. He died eventually in somewhere in Southeast Asia, but these events are very well documented, and then you get a really good of an idea how people lived back in the day and how they set up such a voyage and how terrible it was to be there. And I was like I just try to understand why people would even want to do these kind of things, and then you kind of get a better idea why that is. So history mostly at the moment, but I do switch back to autobiographies from time to time, and then some very practical theoretical things that I can imply, in business life or daily life or whatever. We read a book, just finished a book called Scale. It's about scaling your business. Very boring, but it's very practical. Yeah, and then that's something I can more easily go through. Yeah.
Nice,
What is
nice.
it? What are you reading, Asha?
What I'm reading Bittersweet by Susan Cain. And it's basically about, the yin yang of, joy and sadness kind of have to come together. You can't have one without the other, and how they really make us human. And she actually makes the point early in the book that the Darwinistic theory was actually misunderstood in terms of survival of the fittest. It was
Really?
more around Darwinism is more around how much empathy can you have for those that are less
Hmm.
capable or privileged or whatever it is. And that's really what makes us human, is to
Okay.
not only be tribal, but to have empathy and to keep everyone together
Yeah.
and to,
Everyone and everything, I guess, right? But,
Hmm?
like also, I guess everyone and everything. So also nature and animals, for example,
Yeah,
or
basically. Yeah,
yeah.
and it's basically about, have allowing yourself to empathize and acknowledge and to get out of your own head and your own bubble, and to be like, okay, well, what would it be like to be the other person? Or sometimes it's, I just feel the way I feel, and that's okay, because we can't have beautiful music and beautiful poetry and beautiful art without those difficult emotions.
Hmm.
And so that's where the whole bittersweet, and even as a flavor, bittersweet is a fantastic flavor,
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, you have, I mean, you have one bad night on peach schnapps and never again, right? Too much
Yeah,
sweet,
peach.
So the bittersweet aspect is works in a lot of ways, and as you know, I talk about all the things. I can talk about really fun, enthusiastic stuff, and then I'll go really dark and existential. So it's perfect for me.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
but
so
you might.
what is your conclusion now then, by reading this book?
My conclusion: the reason I read those books and the reason I listen to the podcasts I listen to is for a variety of reasons. I don't want to sound mean. The last few years, people have either a more limited bandwidth because life is hectic, or they just don't have the emotional range because it's just not who they are.
Yeah.
So,
The
nature,
EQ.
nurture, whatever. And it's kind of compounding and increasing as the years go by, where people just have the capacity to deal with whatever it is they have the capacity for.
Yeah.
And for me, I need these conversations. They're like oxygen for me. And that's why I listen to all the podcasts I listen to. And I love, like, I cannot live without high quality conversation, even if I'm not part of the conversation, as long as I hear it.
Nice.
Rick Rubin's podcast called Tetragrammaton, which I didn't even know was another word for God, has this 6-hour podcast with Huberman and the brain surgeon, Dr. Jack Cruz. I
Yeah.
have no idea what they're talking about. They are talking about medical things like that is so far out of my scope. He made Huberman sound like a first year university student, this brain
Yeah.
surgeon. He wiped the floor with him. And I listened to the 6-hour podcast like I was eating ice cream. I promise
Yeah.
you. It's so satisfying to me. And what I get from a book like Bittersweet is a place where not I can just feel and think and feel validated and not have to make myself a little bit more palatable for the person I'm speaking to, because I can see that they're a little bit more narrow and I don't want to make them uncomfortable. So then in the privacy of my own books or podcast, I can just go like full emotion.
Nice.
So that's and I'm learning a lot about history and artists. And she was talking about Leonard Cohen. And I never, even though Leonard Cohen is from Montreal, my hometown, there's a lot that I didn't know about him. And so it's just beautiful to understand the history and the art behind such vital human emotion.
Yeah.
So that's what I
Right.
get out of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I know that you're very busy, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate this. It's been really fun. I hope you've had some
Thank
fun, 'cause I know this is not your preference.
you. Oh well, once you're in it, it's fine, right? It's just the overthinking part of it.
It's like cold
I'm normally
plunge.
not the guy that would want to stand in the spotlights per se. I'm like whatever, someone else can do that, but it's a great experience. Yeah.
It has, and I want to thank you personally for the opportunities and the experiences I've been allowed to have working with you and for you. And I know
My
that our
pleasure.
community thanks you with such sincerity and such heartfelt gratitude. I can tell, the butterfly effect. Funny enough, I'm going to wrap up with this. The person that introduced me to you guys when I was in Bali last month, I there was some feedback from someone that really came through. Actually, we're going to interview her. She cured her PTSD from sexual assault through microdosing. And
Wow.
so I interviewed her. Yeah. So it was, and she reached out to us because we sent out a survey, and she reached out to us and she's like, I really want to share my story. And there was another lady, there's a lady, she's a translator for the Belgian government, and she doesn't microdose yet. She just uses the functional mushrooms, the mushroom essential complex. And she's over the moon, and she also wanted to give a review testimonial. So I interviewed both of them in the same week. And
I can't
I
wait to
reached
see
out
those.
to our mutual friend. Eh?
Hmm. I cannot wait to see those. Actually, I'm very
I
curious.
Well, yes. Nils, I don't even think Nils has watched them yet, but they're in there. They're in the database. They were
Nice.
really, really powerful, I thought. And once I had done those two recordings, I reached out to our mutual friend Cam, and I said, "It's all your fault. It's all your fault.
You
This is the
started this.
butterfly effect at play, because he introduced me to you guys, and I made sure to become as indispensable as possible to you. And the effect ripples and ripples and ripples, and then we get such feedback that takes us by surprise so often.
Beautiful.
And
Yeah.
so for all of the experiences that we don't know about yet and all of the feedback we haven't received yet, on behalf of the community, I thank you very much. And
Oh
thank
no,
you for
it's
your
really my pleasure. This is what drives me in the morning, and gets us going. And I think that the future will be even more brighter. we're making magic happen. So
We are making magic happen. The spores are sporing. The spores are sporing.
nice.
Have a lovely day further. I'll see you on Slack.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll see you soon in person, right? Just a few
I
more
can't
weeks.
wait. Can't wait. Counting the days. I hope you enjoyed that conversation just as much as I did. Be sure to like and subscribe, check out our other videos, and go to both Microdose Pro and Human Pro for more information. As always, shine bright, do good, and flow strong.